Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 4, Episode 7, the penultimate episode of the entire series of HBO's Barry, entitled A Nice Meal. This title refers to the scene where Fuchs' crew is discussing ways to make their current levels of violence a bit more acceptable for his wife and stepdaughter. That's stepdaughter, right? Well, obviously, he didn't create her that fast. I forgot about her from last week. But yes, well, one of the guys suggests taking them out to a nice meal during their violence. And then this kind of becomes I think about how loud the Fast and the Furious movies are, or someone else suggested they could just play those movies really, really loud. And I just didn't think this gag was funny enough to go on as long as it did, or to trigger the name of the episode. But hey, I far be it from me to question any decisions that Bill Hader makes, because I'm pretty much at the camp of this guy might be a fucking genius. But anyway, I thought this episode did some great work with Gene and Sally, and it got me really pumped for a finale that I'm pretty confident is going to be pretty great. But you know, I did have a couple of issues. Like I said, that gag right there with the Fast and the Furious movies, I thought that went on a little bit too long. I had some issues mainly with the plausibility of Barry's escape, but I love where all the characters ended this episode, and I'm really excited for the epic night of HBO history that is going to take place this Sunday with the series finales of both Succession and Barry. So I want to start with talking about Barry, the character. I'm obviously already talking about the show. And then I'm going to talk about Gene, Sally, and then a couple of thoughts, and that'll be it. So when we last saw Barry, he was captured by Jim Moss, and he was tied up in the garage. And when we see Barry at the beginning of this episode, we can hear him praying. He's scared. He's panicking. He's worried for John. He wants to make sure John's safe. And he's seeing these images that he can't control from his past. And right as we get the title on screen, we cut to what it would be Jim Moss's POV. And we see Barry just kind of like writhing in a chair with these fucking blackout goggles on. And it's funny because when the episode opens, everything feels very intense, very heavy. You're scared for Barry. You think maybe he's being tortured. You don't know what's going on. He sounds completely broken. And then for some reason, the visual of him writhing in that chair, looking like he's wearing fucking VR goggles, it just a great way, a hilarious way, and a hilarious visual to open this penultimate episode. But later on, we see Moss carefully selecting which torture weapon he plans on using, but he overhears Barry mention the $250,000 that he had given Gene, and Moss's ears really perk up at this one. And this was interesting because I thought this was going to be Jim Moss showing some weakness, right? Like, I'm thinking like he's here to fuck up the guy that killed his daughter, and that he's just gonna be like, yeah, but for $250,000 though, maybe I might, delay this killing while I can find out what's up with this money. That's kind of where I thought this was going at first, but this actually ended up being one of the other problems that I had with this episode. There's this whole elaborate setup for Gene that I'll get to when I talk about Gene, but I had a hard time buying that Moss would even prioritize this whole mission with Gene over having Barry, the man who killed his daughter, locked in his garage, let alone leave Barry for that long of a period of time with a knife on the table, sitting in a chair that's not even bolted to the floor. Like, like this show toes the line between reality and the surreal quite a bit often, and that allows the show to get away with more things that feel implausible. But not this, man. That's really hard for me to buy. Like, I was really surprised when Barry escaped in the daytime, passed out, woke up at night, and was still there, unfound. Like, Moss left his house with someone of Barry's ability, shabbily, like, subdued, for the entire day. Like, I don't know. I can't buy Moss. I can't buy that Moss would be that stupid. Like, I get that, like, where they needed to get us to, but man, I wish they put a little bit more into making that feel a little bit more plausible, because that's not one of those things that you could chalk up to like, it's kind of surreal sometimes. Like, no, like, yeah, you can't do it with that one. But Barry does come into the kitchen after he does wake up at night because he hears his phone ringing. He presumably sees Sally's number because he answers the phone as if he's talking to Sally, but it turns out to be Hank on the other end, telling him that he's going to give him a address and he needs to come there if he wants to see his family again. And we end the episode with an image of Barry leaning against the wall with his head down, shaking with rage. Kind of looked like, I want to say, like the promotional art for like season 2 of The Leftovers. Like, there's something where it's like you see Justin Theroux's character, like I think he's like his fist is like hitting like a brick wall or something, and the wall is smashed. And he's got his head down in like a similar way to how Barry's is at the end of this episode. But yeah, I'm excited to see what's gonna happen. Like Barry, Fuchs, Hank, like all of these three, Moss, Gene, they're probably all gonna come together in the same room in some way toward the end of this finale. And I'm looking forward to it. So, but yeah, the thing with I mentioned the joke. The long running Fast and Furious joke that felt like that they were doing that for like 45 seconds. Wasn't a big fan of that. Wasn't a big fan of Moss and the plausibility of Barry's escape. But like I said, I really like the Gene and Sally stuff, so we're gonna get to that in a moment. But I want to talk about Hank real quick first. And after the disrespect to his relationship with Cristobal that was levied by Fuchs at the end of the last episode, Hank is ready to have Fuchs killed. He hires 4 badass ultimate killers, and they give a nice little acronym for it. It's I think they say like FUBAC or something like that, but the captions didn't have the caption I think says something like FB UK or something like that. Hank comments on the good-looking final guy, and the comments were hilarious, like what he's saying about this guy. But then I didn't like later when he's opening the boxes that have their heads in them, because they build up to something they could have never measured up to. Like, as soon as you see the 4 boxes with blood on the bottom of them, immediately as an audience, we all know, 1, it's the heads of the 4 ultimate badass killers, or 4 badass ultimate killers. And then 2, we know, like, oh shit, the one that Hank thinks is fine is gonna be in there, and he's probably gonna like have some sort of comment. So like, he starts opening the boxes one by one, and we immediately start anticipating, like, okay, what's he gonna say when he gets to the one of the guy that he thought was good looking? Then it took him kind of long to get there. Like, he pauses, he even says, like, why am I still opening these? Which was funny. But the anticipation was just too high. So the joke for me when he got there, I don't even remember what he said, but it ultimately fell flat because it was predictable that it would happen, and then it didn't live up to the inevitable buildup that started the moment we saw 4 boxes on the table. So like, that was one where it's like, whatever he said, it was funny. Like, I remember going like, hey, like it wasn't like real funny, but it was like, it wasn't as funny as it could have been, because again, like I said, by the time he got to opening the box, the anticipation of what he was gonna say was astronomically fucking high, and they were never gonna be able to meet that. When you couple that with, when you think of like the comments that he gave when the guy was alive, the fact that we knew we were going to get a comment as soon as we saw the boxes, and then the time between when we saw the boxes and we got the comment, it was just too much build up, and the joke just didn't land. But yes, obviously Hank's initial plan didn't work, so he plans to blow up the house that Fuchs and his crew is in via rocket. When that doesn't work, he then decides to give Fuchs what he wants, which is Barry, and he intends to find Barry via Gene, which is how his crew ends up at Gene's house to capture Sally and John at the end of the episode. And this is now where I want to get into the Gene and Sally stuff that I thought was the best stuff of the episode. I'm gonna start with Gene. Like I said, I feel like the Gene stuff specifically, I think, is the best stuff of the episode. The scam that I mentioned earlier with Moss, it ends up playing out in the Gene stuff, and it plays out as follows. I'm just gonna tell you what happened. So Moss, the DA, the chief of police, Gene's son, they're all like, they're not in on it, but they're aware of what's going on. And there's an agent that is being played by an actor, and this agent calls Gene and tells him that Daniel Day-Lewis wants to play him in the movie. Come out of retirement to play Gene in this movie about his situation with Barry. And Gene, having already previously taken the moral high ground when it came to profiting off of Janice's story, is now suddenly all ears when Daniel Day-Lewis's name is brought up. So already you're just disappointed. Like, you think this guy might have finally turned the corner to not being kind of a piece of shit. I don't want to say a piece of shit. Gene's not a piece of shit. He's just kind of like just kind of a slime ball, I guess, right? But it just turns out that the pot just needed to be sweeter. It wasn't that like, Gene's turned into a good guy who does the right thing. Like, no, he just raised the bar for what he's willing to accept to be a scumbag. But then, in an even shittier move, once he finds out that the movie won't happen unless they can get a big star to play Barry, the agent tells him that Mark Wahlberg is not only willing to play the role, but wants to play it. They've done testing research that tells them that the movie's gonna, like, studios are gonna be entering a bidding war to get this movie if Mark Wahlberg plays Barry and Daniel Day-Lewis plays Gene. But the problem is that Mark doesn't want to play a villain. He doesn't want to play somebody who kills cops and shit. So in order to make sure the movie gets made, Gene goes so far as to start defending Barry, the man who killed the love of his life, in order to sell the idea of Mark playing the role and get the movie made and get Daniel Day-Lewis to play him, and then he can then be lavished with all of the attention. And it's pretty slimy, gutless, and a scumbag move on Gene's part. But it does come back around to bite him. Once he learns it was a setup from everyone involved, plus his son, they also look at all of the evidence, including the $250,000, and they have essentially all come to the determination that Gene and Barry worked together to kill Janice. And like, I really loved Mean Gene's heel turn here, but I also loved how the consequences for him making the shitty decision were immediate. Like, he immediately was like, oh, fuck. Like, he's immediately fucked. I love that. I love consequences in general when they happen to shitty people, and shitty people do shitty things and see the consequences of their actions. I love it, but I love it even more when it's like immediately like that. Also, when Gene, when he got the call from the agent, he asked if it was Tony Danza on the phone fucking with him, and like, I felt it just would have been a legendary gag to have actual Tony Danza show up later. Like, it didn't have to be Tony Danza that was on the phone, but maybe like a scene later where like Tony Danza shows up or something, and Gene is just like, I knew you were fucking with me on the phone, Tony Maselli. I don't know, whatever the fuck he said. I don't know. I think it would have just been funny and random to just have Tony Danza show up, which, I mean, we can't rule out for the finale, but man, I need to get all the motherfucking internet points. If Tony Danza shows up in the finale, god damn, man. I'm gonna clip this and blast it everywhere on the fucking internet with like a timestamp on it. Like, yo, on May 23rd, I said that Tony Danza was gonna be in the finale of Barry. Shower me with wealth and praise. But anyway, moving on to Sally. I reserved the space for Sally here because even though not a lot happened with her, I want to tie her story in this episode to Gene's, because I said I liked how Gene's poor decision saw immediate consequences. Well, Sally got the same deal here, even faster. So she brings John to LA and she tries to meet up with Gene. He sends her to his house because he has to have his scumbag meeting with this agent, right? While outside his house, Sally sees the police. And real quick, before I even get to seeing the police, I like the moment where John asks, like, what are we gonna do once Dad is here and everything is smoothed out? And she's like, we just keep doing what we're doing. He's like, what the fuck is that? and then like she looks like broken inside, the sound goes away, and you kind of realize like, where do you go from here? Like if you are Sally and you are Barry, and all of these chickens have come to roost, and let's say even you get out of this okay, like then what? Like you just go back to wherever the fuck they were living at and go to Walmart and shit as a fucking family? No, like, and I think that reality of like, I can't have a normal life anymore, I feel like that hit Sally in that moment. I thought that was pretty cool. But where was I? Oh yeah, she sees the police and she goes to this cop. She starts to turn herself in, but she stops when she sees the cop bleeding out of his eye, which reminds her of the guy that she killed. And then right as the police car is pulling away, and it's still within shouting distance. Like, I mean, it's like not even shouting distance. It's within like raised voice distance. Right as this car is pulling away, still in raised voice distance, she turns around, she sees Hank's guys taking John and then coming toward her. And we all come to the understanding, just like with Jean, if she had just done the right thing, she'd have been safe. Just like if Jean had done the right thing and said, fuck doing this movie, none of this would have happened. But instead, Jean is now possibly on the hook for the murder of the woman that he loved. And now Sally, because she did the wrong thing, is now captured by Hank, and captured by Hank with her son, by the way. And in a position where she's now thinking like, okay, if Barry doesn't come save me, I'm going to die. And because she didn't do the right thing. And I guess that leaves this big question for the finale, which is, what's Barry going to do? Barry's been faced with these moral choices very often throughout the run of this show. Is he going to be faced with a do the right thing sort of choice? If he does, what does that look like? What decision does he make? Does the Barry that we've watched this whole time, is he going to make a decision that tracks with the evolution of this character over these 4 seasons? And if so, what consequences might come from it? I don't know. These are questions I have for the finale. Answer them in the comments if you're one of the 18 people who's gonna watch this video. And answer the comments what you think is gonna happen in the finale. I will see you guys. Not even next week. I'm so late getting this shit out. I will see you guys. No, it will be next week because technically the video will come out Monday for the series finale. And until then, peace.